I thought losing my hearing would be the worst ordeal of my life, but it turned out the real horror was hearing the truth about the man I loved. My name is Gloria, and this story began on a chilly October morning in Chicago as I hurried to work down Michigan Avenue. A cyclist on an e-bike knocked me over right outside, and I hit my head on the curb. At the hospital, the doctors diagnosed a concussion and temporary sensorineural hearing loss. Mrs. Collins, in most cases, hearing returns within a few weeks, Dr. Anderson said, his lips moving silently in my new world of absolute quiet. My world changed in an instant. Chicago's noise, car horns, street vendors shouting about hot dogs, the clatter of trams vanished. All that remained were visual impressions, people's moving lips, their gestures, their expressions. It was like being trapped behind a glass wall, watching life unfold without fully participating in it. Michael, my husband of 5 years, was a pillar of support at first. He learned sign language, downloaded a speech-to-text app on his iPhone, and left sweet notes on our fridge, decorated with magnets from our road trips across the states. "You've got this, my strong girl," he'd write on Post-its I'd find tucked into my Coach purse. Our Lincoln Park apartment became a quiet sanctuary. Michael stopped blasting the TV during Cubs games and gave up his beloved evening jazz. He adapted to my silent world, and I was grateful. His mom often stopped by with homemade cookies, speaking slowly and clearly so I could read her lips. Those first weeks were brutal. I worked as a marketing manager at a small firm in the Loop, but I had to take extended medical leave. Client meetings, presentations, phone calls, all impossible without hearing. Michael was there for me. "We'll get through this, Gloria," he said. "It's temporary, your health is what matters." But slowly I noticed changes, subtle, almost imperceptible. Michael stopped making eye contact when he spoke. His smiles turned polite, lacking the warmth that once comforted me. He no longer left his phone on the kitchen counter as he always had. Now he carried it everywhere, even to the bathroom. Before, Michael would hug me when he got home from his law firm downtown. Now it was a quick peck on the cheek before he headed straight to the shower. He stopped lingering in the kitchen to chat about our day while I cooked our favorite steak. Instead, he shut himself in his office, working late. I tried to chalk it up to stress. Caring for someone with a disability isn't easy. Maybe he was just tired, maybe it was temporary like my deafness. But doubts crept in, especially after that incident at Whole Foods. We were shopping and I saw Michael on the phone in the next aisle among the organic produce. His face was animated, laughing in a way he hadn't with me in ages. I tried to read his lips, but he was angled away, showing only his profile. When he noticed me watching, his expression shifted. He ended the call abruptly. "Who was that?" I wrote on a notepad. "Work," he replied curtly, avoiding my eyes. "Boring legal stuff." But I'd seen the name on his screen as he shoved the phone into his Levi's. Vanessa. Who was Vanessa? That night, lying next to Michael in our king-size bed, I racked my brain. Had he ever mentioned a Vanessa? A vague memory surfaced, something about a woman he'd dated before me, seriously. They'd even planned a wedding, but it fell apart. I didn't know then that I'd soon learn far more than I wanted. It happened a month after the accident on a sunny November morning. I woke up and reached for Michael, but his side of the bed was empty. Normally, Sundays meant pancakes with maple syrup, fresh orange juice, and coffee from our beloved machine. But that morning, something was off. I got up, slipped on my fuzzy robe, and headed toward the kitchen. Then I heard it, a faint but distinct drip of water from the faucet. My heart skipped. Could it be? I froze in the hallway, afraid to move. Then another sound reached me, a man's voice from the living room, Michael's voice. My hearing was back, suddenly, without warning, just as it had vanished. I was so overwhelmed I nearly shouted with joy. I wanted to run to Michael, hug him, tell him about the miracle, but something in his tone stopped me. He was speaking softly, almost whispering on the phone. "I know it's cruel, but it's easier this way, you know," Michael was saying. "When she can't hear, she doesn't ask questions, she doesn't suspect. It might sound awful, but honestly, Vanessa, it's more convenient that she's still deaf." The world stopped, my breath caught in my chest. "I know I should married you back then," he went on. "We'd be living in that house and we dreamed about raising kids. Instead, I'm stuck with a woman who's become a burden." Each word cut deeper than a knife. This was the man who'd vowed to love me in sickness and in health. The man who, just a week ago, wrote, "You're my life, Gloria." "She doesn't know about the inheritance," he continued. After her mom died last year, she was so distraught she didn't even dig into the paperwork. The house in Oak Park, the land in Wisconsin, the bank account, it could all be mine if she signs the right papers. Mom says it's time to act while she's, like this. My knees buckled. I grabbed the wall to keep from collapsing. My mom's inheritance, the Oak Park house where I grew up, every room filled with memories, the Wisconsin lakefront plot where we spent summer weekends where Mom taught me to fish, the savings she'd built over a lifetime as a Chicago hospital nurse. Mom says we have a plan, Michael whispered. Gloria trusts me. If I say the papers are for taxes, she'll sign without reading, especially now when she's so dependent on me. There was no remorse in his voice, just cold calculation. I miss you, Vanessa, he said, his tone softening, tender in a way I hadn't heard in months. I miss how we were. Remember our last talk before I met Gloria? You said you weren't ready for marriage, wanted to live for yourself, build your career in New York. Now you're back and I'm tied down. Tied down, he called our marriage a burden. But if this goes according to plan, if we get the inheritance, I can file for divorce, Michael said. I'll have the means to start over, with you, in New York if you want, or anywhere. I backed silently into the bedroom, closed the door, and collapsed onto the bed. Tears streamed down my face, but I cried soundlessly. Years in silence had taught me to express pain quietly. So that was it, the accident, my hearing loss, my helplessness. It was all a convenient opportunity for Michael, a chance to execute a plan he'd hatched with his dear mother, who'd always been kind to me but whose eyes sometimes held strange looks, who insisted Michael handle all my financial affairs after Mom's death so as not to overwhelm me in a difficult time. I thought they cared, they were thinking about money. For the next few days I kept pretending to be deaf. It was harder than it sounds. I had to ignore the sounds I now heard, creaking floorboards, the hum of the fridge, ambulance sirens outside, but I managed. I had a purpose. I started observing, listening, gathering information. Michael and met daily while I was out. I began taking long walks, claiming the doctor recommended exercise for recovery. They discussed their plan in our living room, thinking I was safe because a deaf wife couldn't overhear. The papers are ready, said, flipping through documents. My lawyer friend drafted everything. It looks like a transfer of assets to the husband due to the wife's temporary health-related incapacity. What if she asks why? Michael said. Tell her it's for taxes required after her mom's death. A formality. Gloria's a marketer, not a lawyer. Plus, she's so dependent on you now she'll sign anything you ask. They were right about one thing. I used to trust Michael blindly. But now, every word they said was evidence locked in my memory. The Oak Park house can be sold 6 months after the transfer, went on. The realtor valued it at $650,000, the lakefront plot's another $200,000, and her mom's account has about $400,000. Over $1 million, that was the price of my trust. What about Vanessa? Michael asked. She's pushing me to decide, says there's a chance to open a law practice in New York, but we need to move fast. Not yet, snapped. You can't file for divorce right after the transfer. It'll look suspicious. Tell your Vanessa to wait a year. What if Gloria's hearing comes back? Michael's voice betrayed worry. So what if it does? Scoffed. The papers will be signed, the assets transferred. What can she prove? That we forced her to sign? We have medical records of her condition, doctor's notes recommending guardianship. It's clean legally. Fury coursed through me, cold and sharp. They'd planned everything, exploiting my condition, my vulnerability, my love. But they made one mistake. They underestimated me. The next day I went to Radio Shack and bought a small digital recorder. The salesman, an older man in glasses, patiently explained its features, thinking I was deaf. I nodded gratefully, gesturing that I understood. At home, I hid the recorder in a vase of fake flowers on the living room coffee table, where Michael and held their secret meetings. That same day, they had a particularly candid conversation. Michael, you need to understand, said, her voice sternly maternal. Gloria was never right for you. She's from a different world. Her mom was a nurse, her dad a mechanic. What inheritance, what connections? Sure, she's got the house and money, but that's all she brings. Mom, don't, Michael said weakly. Gloria's a good woman. Good, sneered. Michael, you're a lawyer from a respectable family. Your father was a partner at one of Chicago's top firms. You have high society connections. Vanessa, daughter of a federal judge, law grad, that's a match. I know, Mom, but I'm married to Gloria. Technically corrected, marriages end, especially when there's cause, like a wife unable to fulfill marital duties due to disability. I felt physically sick at their cynicism. Besides, she continued, have you noticed how Gloria's changed this month? Suspicious, withdrawn, always watching you. It's unhealthy. People like that turn paranoid, inventing problems out of thin air. If only she knew how close to the truth she was. Vanessa called yesterday, Michael said, asked when I'd decide. She got an offer from a big Manhattan firm, wants me to join her as a partner. And you said that I need time, but she's losing patience. Then speed things up, said firmly. Tomorrow bring Gloria the papers, say it's urgent that the IRS is auditing, women in her state don't ask questions about complex stuff. What if she wants her own lawyer? Michael worried. She doesn't have one, you've handled all her legal matters since her mom died. If she asks, say it's a formality that you've checked everything. She trusts you, right? Trusted past tense. That evening, Michael acted out of character. He was overly affectionate, cooking my favorite grilled salmon with vegetables, opening a bottle of good Chardonnay, playing romantic music I couldn't hear, lighting candles. I know I've been distant lately, he wrote. Work stress, but I want you to know I love you, we'll get through this. What an actor. If I didn't know the truth, I might believed him, been touched, thought my husband finally saw how much I needed his support. But I knew this was preparation for tomorrow's blow. He wanted to lower my guard. After dinner, we sat on the couch, his arms around me. His touch felt fake, rehearsed. I thought about how I used to melt in his embrace, feeling safe. Now those same arms were poised to steal everything. By the way, I'll need to show you some papers tomorrow, he wrote casually. Tax stuff, just need your signature. I nodded with a smile, feigning compliance. Inside, I burned with rage. That night, I didn't sleep. Lying next to the man planning to betray me, I plotted my next move. Michael slept soundly, occasionally mumbling. Once he said, that sealed my resolve. By morning, I had a plan. The next day started normally. Michael got up at 7, showered, ate oatmeal with berries and coffee. He kissed my cheek coldly, mechanically. I almost missed the days when he just ignored me. This pretense was worse. At 10, he came home with a stack of papers. Hey honey, he said, lips moving as I read them. I've got those papers I mentioned. The IRS needs some forms about your mom's inheritance. No big deal, just formalities. He spread the documents on the kitchen table. I picked them up, pretending to read carefully. In reality, I was scouring every line, and what I saw was worse than I'd feared. These weren't tax forms, they were a complete transfer of my mom's inheritance, house, land, bank account, to Michael for management and disposal at his discretion. Signing them would leave me penniless. What does this mean? I wrote, pointing to a suspicious clause. Oh, just legal jargon, Michael waved off. It means I'll help manage the assets while you're, not well. You know how tough it is to deal with this stuff alone right now. Liar, blatant, cynical liar. Why the rush? I wrote. Can't it wait a couple of days? No, unfortunately, he shook his head. The IRS set a deadline for next week. If we don't file today, there could be penalties, big ones. Another lie. I knew from my job that no urgent tax requirements existed. I picked up the pen, holding it as if ready to sign. Michael watched, barely hiding his eagerness. But instead, I wrote, I want to show these to a lawyer. His face changed, the smile stiffened. Why? He wrote, I'm a lawyer, I've checked everything. Plus, a lawyer costs money and these need to be filed today. Just want to be sure, I wrote. Mom always said important papers need an independent review. Now Michael looked openly annoyed. Gloria, don't you trust me? He wrote, his pen pressing hard. I'm your husband, I'm looking out for you, I'd never do anything to hurt you. The irony, he said this while planning to leave me homeless and broke. I feigned hesitation, then wrote, okay, but I want to read every clause carefully. For the next half hour, I pored over the documents, taking notes, asking questions. Michael answered with growing reluctance and irritation, glancing at his watch, clearly in a hurry. Finally, I wrote, I can't sign today, too complex. I want to show them to Mom's old lawyer, Mr. Johnson. Michael flinched. Gloria, he said aloud, forgetting I couldn't hear, this can't wait, deadlines, the IRS. Then he caught himself and wrote, but I'd seen his true face. The mask of the caring husband was gone, revealing greed and frustration. Fine, he wrote, trying to stay calm, but don't delay, this is serious. He gathered the papers and left, slamming the door, his first emotional outburst since my illness. I was left alone with my thoughts and my plans for revenge. That afternoon, I visited Mr. Johnson, the elderly lawyer who'd worked with my mom. He was surprised to see me and concerned when I shared the documents without mentioning my restored hearing. Mrs. Collins, he said, studying photocopies I'd secretly made, these aren't tax forms. This is a transfer of ownership. If you sign, your husband becomes the sole owner of your mother's inheritance. But he says it's temporary, I wrote, that he'll manage it until I'm better. There's nothing temporary here, he shook his head. It says for disposal at his discretion. He could sell, gift, or do whatever he wants with your assets without your consent. Mr. Johnson, a lawyer for over 40 years, explained the legal nuances and offered to help protect my interests. I suspect my husband is trying to deceive me, I wrote. Can you help me gather evidence? If you have reason to believe that, yes, he nodded. But we'll need solid proof, recordings, documents, witnesses. Courts don't accept baseless claims. I told him about the recorder and the overheard conversations. He listened carefully and gave clear instructions. Keep gathering evidence, he advised. Record everything, photograph documents, keep a diary of suspicious actions, and don't sign anything until we're certain. That evening I came home to a furious Michael. He paced the living room like a caged tiger, muttering to himself. When I entered, he spun around. Where were you? He wrote, pressing the pen so hard it nearly tore the paper. Walking, I replied calmly. Doctor said exercise helps recovery. 3 hours, his eyes narrowed. You were walking for 3 hours. Stopped by the library, I lied. It's quiet there. He eyed me suspiciously but couldn't argue. A deaf wife could spend time at a library. About those papers, he wrote, trying to sound casual. I talked to the IRS, they gave us 2 more days, but that's it. More lies, I nodded understandingly. That night, I overheard him talking to in the bathroom, thinking the running water would mask his voice. Mom, she's getting suspicious, he whispered. She was gone 3 hours today, I don't know where, and when I brought the papers she refused to sign, says she wants a lawyer. What lawyer? Sounded alarmed. I don't know, maybe that old guy who worked with her mom, Johnson, I think. That's bad, said. Johnson's an honest lawyer. If he sees the papers, he'll know what's up. What do I do? Michael sounded lost. Act faster, convince her there's no time, scare her. And if that doesn't work? Then we go to plan B, said coldly. You remember what we discussed if she resists. Mom, I'm not sure. Michael, she snapped, we're too far in to back out. Vanessa won't wait forever. The New York opportunity might not come again. Your wife is just an obstacle to a real life. Plan B, my blood ran cold. Okay, Michael sighed. I'll try again tomorrow, but if she refuses? If she refuses, we take decisive action, said. We have medical records about her mental state post-injury. We can file for temporary incapacity through the courts. An incapacitated person can't manage assets. Fear gripped me. They were ready to declare me mentally unfit to seize my inheritance. But I had an ace they didn't know about. The next morning I woke with a clear plan. Today it would end. I'd either win or lose everything. Michael was a wreck at breakfast, dropping his fork, spilling coffee on his shirt. I acted oblivious, calmly eating toast with jam and reading news on my tablet. At 10, he brought the papers again. Gloria, he wrote, his hand trembling, we can't delay anymore. The IRS is threatening huge fines. They could freeze accounts, seize the house. You don't want to lose your mom's inheritance over bureaucratic nonsense, do you? I picked up the pen, pretending to prepare to sign. He exhaled in relief. But instead, I stood and walked to the vase with fake flowers. What are you doing? He wrote, confused. I pulled out the recorder and set it on the table beside the papers. "Shall we listen?" I said aloud, my first spoken words in weeks. Michael froze, his face went white. "Gloria, you can talk," he stammered. "I can and I can hear," I said calmly, "for 2 weeks now, and you know what's fascinating about getting my hearing back? You hear all sorts of interesting things." I pressed play, his voice filled the room. "It's easier this way, you know. When she can't hear, she doesn't ask questions, she doesn't suspect. It might sound awful, but honestly, Vanessa, it's more convenient that she's still deaf." He lunged for the recorder, but I was faster. "Don't," I said coldly. "I have copies and my lawyers heard them too." "Gloria, I can explain." "Explain what?" My voice rose, weeks of pent-up emotion breaking free. "How you planned to steal my mom's inheritance, how you dreamed of running off with your precious Vanessa, how you were glad I was deaf." "It's not what you think." "What do I think, Michael?" I was shouting now, tears streaming down my face. "That my husband, the man I trusted most in the world, is a greedy, lying bastard who used my injury, my helplessness, for his sick plans." He backed away, his face a mix of fear and anger. "You don't understand," he yelled. "I'm trapped in this marriage. Vanessa's my real love. We were supposed to be together." "Then why not divorce me honestly?" I asked, wiping tears. "Why try to rob me?" "Because I didn't have the money for a new life," he blurted. "My firm's salary is a joke compared to what's offered in New York. Your inheritance was a chance to start over." "At my expense." "So what?" His voice turned venomous. "You're a working-class girl from a nobody family. What would you do with that money? Waste it on nonsense. I could've built a real business." I stared at the man I'd loved for 5 years, trusted implicitly, and didn't recognize him. The mask was gone, revealing his true self. "You know what, Michael?" I said quietly, clearly. "You're right, I'm a working-class girl, but you know what my parents taught me? Honesty, integrity. Your high society mom taught you only greed and betrayal." The doorbell rang. I went to answer, leaving a stunned Michael in the living room. At the door were Mr. Johnson and a female police officer. "Mrs. Collins," she said, "Detective Mr. Johnson informed us of possible fraud." "Come in," I said, opening the door wide. Perfect timing. Detective listened to the recordings, reviewed the documents Michael tried to make me sign. Mr. Johnson explained the legal details. "Mr. Collins," she said to a pale, silent Michael, "do you understand the gravity of this? Attempted fraud, planning to steal your wife's assets." "I didn't commit any crimes," Michael shouted. "We're married, I have a right to manage our assets." "No, you don't," said coolly. "Inherited property belongs solely to the heir. Your actions constitute fraud." The next hours were a blur of statements, paperwork, and calls. Michael was arrested. A search of the house uncovered more damning evidence: correspondence with Vanessa, plans for their New York move. Was summoned to the station. When I saw her, she glared at me with raw hatred. "Ungrateful brat," she hissed. "Michael could given you a great life." "Great for who?" I asked. "Him and Vanessa." "You were never worthy of my son." "Maybe," I said, "but your son wasn't worthy of honesty." The trial was 3 months later. More details emerged. Michael and Vanessa not only planned to steal my inheritance but also to frame me as mentally unstable to gain full control. They had fake psychiatric evaluations, bribed officials. Michael got 2 years for fraud and attempted theft, received probation and a hefty fine for complicity. Vanessa, aware of the plan but not directly involved, escaped with a scare and a broken engagement. In the courtroom, Michael tried to talk to me one last time. "Gloria," he said when we were briefly alone, "I know I messed up, but believe me, I did love you. At the start, I loved you." "You know what, Michael?" I said, meeting his eyes. "Maybe you did, but your love was too weak against money and convenience. Real love should make people better, not worse." He looked down and said nothing more. A year passed. I sold the Lincoln Park apartment, too many bad memories, and moved into Mom's Oak Park house. It was peaceful, cozy, every room filled with memories of real love and care. I returned to work. Colleagues were amazed at my miraculous recovery but asked no questions. I got a promotion. My trials had made me stronger professionally too. My hearing fully returned. Sometimes I catch myself listening to sounds, rain on the roof, birds in the garden, kids laughing outside. Silence no longer feels threatening. It can be a shield, a weapon. The lawyer's investigation revealed Michael planned to divorce me right after securing the assets, citing my incapacity. Vanessa had already picked out a Manhattan apartment for their new life, funded by my money. But you know what? I'm grateful to them. Yes, you heard that right. I'm grateful to the husband who betrayed me and his mother who schemed to rob me. Because they showed me who I really am. I'm not a victim. I'm not a helpless woman who needs a man to make decisions for her. I'm strong, smart, capable of standing up for myself. The accident took my hearing for a few weeks but gave me back my true self. Sometimes people pity me, oh poor thing what you went through, but I don't feel like a victim, I feel like a victor. I've started seeing a man named David. He's a doctor at the hospital where I was treated after the accident. We met during a follow-up hearing test. He's kind, honest, and most importantly, when I told him my story, he said, "You're so strong, not everyone could fight back like that." I'm not rushing into this relationship. Trust is fragile and I need time to rebuild it, but I'm open to love, real, honest love. In Mom's house, there's an old, creaky swing in the backyard. Some evenings I sit there thinking about the past and future. The creaking doesn't remind me of loss anymore. It reminds me life goes on, that every fall leads to a rise. I heard Michael was released early for good behavior. He lives in a small Indiana town working at a local law firm. Vanessa married a New York banker. Life sorted itself out. And me, I live in the house my grandfather built, cherishing Mom's memories, making plans. I have a job I love, friends who support me, dreams to chase. Most importantly, I'll never again let anyone use my kindness, love, or trust against me, because now I listen not just with my ears but with my heart, and my heart knows who to trust and who to keep at a distance. Yesterday I got a letter from Michael. Dear Gloria, I know I have no right to write, but I can't stay silent. In prison, I thought about what I did, the pain I caused you. I'm not asking for forgiveness, I don't deserve it, I just want you to know you were right about everything. I did love you at the start, but I let greed and ambition blind me. Mom died last month, cancer. In her final days, she often spoke of you, regretting what we did. She asked me to tell you she's sorry. I live quietly, work, try to be better. I don't know if I'll succeed, but I'm trying. I hope you're happy, you deserve it more than anyone I know. Sincerely, Michael. I read it twice, then folded it and tucked it into a box with other important papers, not out of sentimentality, but as a reminder to never forget the past's lessons. It's Saturday, David's coming over for lunch, we're making pizza in the new backyard oven I bought last week. Maybe later we'll drive to Lake Michigan, watch the sunset. Life is a strange thing. Sometimes it takes something precious to give you something even more valuable. I lost my hearing and found strength. I lost a husband and found myself. I lost illusions and gained wisdom. And you know what? I wouldn't change a thing. The Gloria who'd blindly sign any paper her husband brought is gone. The new Gloria, strong, independent, knowing her worth, is who I always wanted to be. Silence taught me to hear, betrayal taught me to love, pain taught me to be happy. Those are the greatest lessons anyone can learn. The doorbell rings, it's David. Time for new stories, new sounds, a new life. Time to be happy. What would you have done in Gloria's shoes? Could you forgive such a betrayal? Share your thoughts below.